Good evening, all. I hope you're doing well. I'm kind of hoping that you can hear me, and I'm not doing with the normal badges thing of streaming with my mic muted. But I hope you're all doing well. And I remembered this time to put the stream on low latency, so you should be able to interact with me a little bit more. I won't be waiting 12 seconds or so for your guys' responses to come through. Good evening to Socially Confused, to Edison, to Ray, Rash. Good to see you all, loud and clear. That's good. I'm really glad. So, uh, hey, boys, pleasure to see you, my friend. I won't repeat that out loud, but yes, absolutely. I'm glad you're happy, my friend. Good. Yeah. So, good evening to everyone. First of all, a drink to you guys. Thank you very much for joining the stream. I'm on the red this evening in a shot glass because I don't like wine glasses. I break the stems a lot, so don't know my own strength. I got retard strength. But cheers. On the red, I'm on a Shiraz this evening, so let's get classy. So, bit of an interesting one this evening, because of course, now that 323.1 has landed, and we had all the Invictus stuff, for some reason the content creation team have taken a hiatus of about a month, and they're not going to be back until the end of June, end of this month. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one, because that's not how content creation works, right? You can create videos in advance and then have them released as a schedule. And I know, I get it. People are like, but badges, like, you don't release consistency either. I don't, but then again, I don't get paid $5 million a year to do so. If I was paid $5 million a year to do this, you can guarantee I would have consistent content out. I promise. So yeah, an interesting one. But I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to talk about a few things that have happened, a few very basic updates to the roadmap, features that are now confirmed for the point 2 patch for 323. We're going to have a look at some of the funding and stuff that went on in Invictus. And what I did just while I was waiting to bring the stream up is I've just put my fleet together because I feel like one of the biggest shocks of the stream last week was me announcing that I had the Perseus to Polaris CCU sat in my buybacks. And if you weren't here, that's not my intent. The current Perseus that I have, it's my baby. It's not going to go anywhere unless it proves to be an absolute bag of spanners, which I doubt really hard. But you know, it's there. It's an option for other things, and I wanted to talk about some of those other things. So we'll do that this evening. Good evening, our graceful Jadomo. Good to see you, buddy. They are doing Squadron 42 promos for the release, I hope. Yeah, that's an interesting one, our graceful. It's an interesting one that you bring that up right now, because you know I'm huffing full hopium, and apologies, a lot of people have heard me say this already, but some of the things that they're talking about with regards to this year, some of the ways they've worded things, are making me think we might have a Squadron 42 announcement, i.e., a release date given to us at CitizenCon. Now, I get it. CIG aren't always the best at wording things, and it's very easy to read things into their wording that aren't there. But I think there's a point, right? And the key things I would say, there's two things. If you look at the premium VIP tickets for CitizenCon, they talk about an autographed piece of memorabilia. Now, what's really interesting is when you go to CitizenCon, all of the people that are there giving talks, like Top Pappy, and I know he's not with the company anymore, but Jared and Chris, they all sit down at the end and they line up, and you get 30 seconds with each with your program, whatever, and they sign your program. So the autograph isn't the CIG people, because everyone gets the option to do that. And CIG would take a massive kick in the balls if they decided to paywall that stuff. So that's not who the autographs are. Well, who else do you want autographs from at a CitizenCon convention? Do you see what I mean? It doesn't make sense, because everyone you might want, like Chris and everyone else that attends, Rich Tyra, Jared, all those people, they're there. So you can get their autographs anyway. The other thing that they talk about is they talk about the gala, which is this time happening on a Friday night. It's a completely separate event to CitizenCon, so the tickets aren't out yet. And they've been talking about extra special guests. Well, like who? Like all the studio members are there every year, so like the big ones that we know. So what? Like who's the extra special guests? And again, it makes me think that the fact that the moment CitizenCon last year was over, they were talking about the fact the next one's going to be the biggest one yet. You know, a year's notice, that's the sort of notice you'd be wanting to give big stars to go and do something. Chris Roberts has experience of the movie industry, so he knows kind of how to interact with these people and how to ask them to do stuff like a Q&A panel at CitizenCon, for example. That would be that sort of stuff. So yes, we'll see. Pilgrim, good evening. Unfortunately not, my friend. Did you make it? I did try a couple more times. Just kept hitting the same. None of the banners were up. The fleet markers weren't working, and wherever I flew, they weren't there. I have heard some people say that for some people they would be in a location but not visible for other people. You know, they would be in the same location looking at the same thing, and the fleet wouldn't be visible to them. So we kind of saw the whole. Um, I saw the fireworks a couple of times, but there was no fleet, there was no Idris, there was no nothing. Um, so unfortunately not, mate. I was really hoping to get on and get that tour done, but I might have to steal someone else's footage to do the video that I wanted to do. But I just wanted to do like an uncut video of following the guided tour around, and then I wanted to do one of commentary and that sort of stuff, and you know. But you know, this is Star Citizen, right? It just is not going anywhere in many senses of the term. So I'll get the chance to do that at some point in the future, I'm sure. Other than that, how has everyone else has been? I hope everyone had a good Memorial Day. Wow, that's very white. But I hope everyone had a very good Memorial Day. Um, you know, and managed to enjoy themselves. Good Lord, that's bright. There we go. Yeah, I always found an Idris at Port Tressler, but no fleet. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I did maybe. You know, I had a look around. I didn't find any markers for it. I must admit, I didn't land at every station every time and jump on to see if it was there. But I did do a quick once around the docking ports and nothing. So I'm glad you found it anyway, mate. That's good news. Yeah, so talking about um, Invictus and that, or just whilst we're here, I guess I'm just going to cut us across to the funding tracker because it's got some interesting stuff, right? So we see on the funding tracker itself that they've managed to make about, well, a little over 15 million in the 2 weeks, weeks 20 and 21. A little bit of sales in the week before, just shy of about, or just around about 2.5 million. So, yeah, all told, 17 and a bit, 17 and some change. So yeah, Mad World of Chaos, evening, shipmate. How you? Hope you're doing all right. But yeah, so yeah, it's been a lot of money. I don't know where that leaves us on the monthly scale of things and whether or not they've caught up. I doubt they've made much ground, but that's not bad considering the fact that the offerings were kind of three small vehicles or two small vehicles, a fighter, and a concept ship. So not a bad break at all. Did anyone end up picking up anything from Invictus? Did anyone get the Ironclad? Because I know when we talked last time, there were still a couple of days left in the event. There were the last round of war bombs still to do. So yeah, they almost caught up, says Pilgrim. Interesting. Does anyone have the figures on what they made then on Invictus the year before? Ironclad says socially nice. Normal or assault, bud? Let's have a quick switch back. Only Warbond CCUs, says Rash. Yep, I caved and found my wallet. Zero new money, says Edison. Nice. Yeah, so a big shout out to Dell. Dell has been on at me for some time now to get a Patreon. And let's see what you guys think, right? I feel uncomfortable getting a Patreon if I'm not offering anything for it, right? Now, Dell's point of view is slightly different, and he's like, some of us just want to be able to support you for the content that you already do. It's not about the new stuff. And the thing is, to like do an early release of videos can really hit hard because the people that end up supporting Patreon are people like yourselves. They're the ones who are there for every stream. They're the ones who are there, they're among the first to watch the videos. So if they've seen the video before you release it on YouTube, then what can often happen is when the video releases, it doesn't get as many people watching it in those critical first few hours, so the videos don't do as well. So releasing a Patreon can actually hurt you for the whatever money the Patreon brings in. It actually hurts, getting your content out there and that sort of stuff. So I'm reticent to do that. But because I've not had this Patreon up and it's been out at me sometimes, you'll remember last stream I spoke about getting an MPUV tractor on loan. One's just turned up in my email, courtesy of Dell, because he's an absolute monster. So thank you very much, Dell. I appreciate it, mate. For when you watch the stream. Bunch of new faces. Hello, Mr. Thor. Good to see you, buddy. Tier 0. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Yeah, so Nursa and the Ironclad says Ape upgraded a Perseus to Polaris, and 2 assaults melted. With 2 assaults melted, is that? I'm not sure how to read that, Graceful, but getting out of the Perseus crew, don't know if I can fully support that. But yeah, if you use the CCU game, there's an overview on the bottom with months when it comes to the last year's. Is it the SSU game? Oh, okay. I shall have a look. Thank you very much for that. Picked up CCUs for both. Cost me $15. CCUs for both what, mate? Sorry. I missed that. Is that the Nurse and the Ironclad? Just the Nurse with store credits, says Malbot of Chaos. And spent some store credits to try some different ships. It manages to fool my brain into thinking I'm buying new stuff, and it's free. Oh, for both of the Ironclads, Thor. Nice, nicely done. Yeah, not a bad little upgrade there for you, I should imagine. Great stuff. Yeah, so second best May month to date, says Pilgrim. And yeah, that's going to be a straight up comparison, right? Because as I said a couple of videos ago, Invictus always happens at this time of the year. And I was actually kind of bemoaning that a little last week. But yeah, good. Well, I'm glad people got some of the ships that they were after. That's really cool. Yeah, maybe we should have made a drinking game for this, I'm feeling, because I'm sitting here going, it's really warm here in the UK comparatively. I've got the windows open. I've just cooked myself some tea, which is why the smell is... I obviously cook really nice smelling food, because between that and the lights, I've got a couple of mozzie things buzzing around. So if you see me swatting at things every so often, it's because for some reason they want to get in my eyes. I don't know. But yeah, so I'll swat every so often, and then I'll go and get rid of them. But I've left the bug spray out of the room, unfortunately. So I guess I'll just swat. I finally locked in my fleet, at least until new shiny ships come out. Socially, so what's in your fleet, mate? If you don't mind sharing, did it go into the Discord? Can I pull it up from there, or not? If it is, just reply to it and tag me in the reply, and I'll go and find a picture. If you're happy to do that, if not, that's fine too. But yeah, whilst we're talking about fleets, then let's just have a look. And this is where I ended up after the most recent CitizenCon and my most recent purchases. Let's have a look. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Yeah, no worries. So let's transition. Okay, so Star Jump Fleet for real. I realize this is going to be pretty small, right? So let's zoom in to start with. Okay, so Here's the slightly specialist area of this. So we've got a mixture of ships in here. Okay, the Vulture itself, this doodah. Okay, the Vulture is my referral ship. So it's my referral Gladius is now a Vulture, and that's going to work up slowly through the ranks of ships as I go on. Just whenever I've got credit or whatever, or there's a nice tasty war bond, I'll jump from that to something. My LTI token recently was the referral Steve that I got. I then upgraded that to a X1 velocity on a warbond. That's then gone up to the Asa Medivac. So that was my LTI token. I think the Medivac's going to be like really useful for distribution centers and getting medical support in without having to brave the turrets. So the Asa Medivac for the moment is staying. The MPUV tractor is the one Dell's just picked out for me, so I can do the video now of all the new vehicles because I've got them all, or I've got footage of them all in the case of the Firebird. The Retaliator was a gift. You know who you are, Edison. But yes, thank you very much. The Retaliator base. So we're going to get a look at that modularity the minute that comes in, and I also kind of like that World War II B-52 bomber feel, or you know the multi-crew and the turrets. I really like that kind of feeling of it. And then the Sulen, that one's Dell's fault again, but it's probably one of my favourite alien ships, aside from the Prowler right now. So that's a really nice ship. So yeah, so these ships, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with them, whether they're going to stay as they are or whether they're going to end up becoming something else. I'm enjoying the salvage gameplay, so the Vulture might stay, but we're going to look at something else that might make the Vulture obsolete in just a moment. Thank you, Socially, I appreciate that. I'll go grab that in just a second. Right, now, the C1 Spirit is what I have at the moment, and this CCU chain looks something like that. Okay, now that's not all of the links in that chain, obviously, because there's a lot more savings to be had there. But at the moment, the C1 Spirit, when we put this chain together, Can gave me a lot of help in Discord, where, you know, much to his pain, I was just the worst person to try and put CCU chains together for. Bless him. And what I did here was I basically said there were stop-offs that I wanted along the way. One of them was the Vulcan, one of them was the Medevac, and then up to the Reclaimer. I like the idea of the Reclaimer crew. Notwithstanding all the changes they've done at the minute, I really like the idea of something that big, 5-man ship, non-combat role, going out and doing work. There'll still be risk, of course. You'll still be going to battle zones that may be being picked over by other scavengers and people less friendly than ourselves. But yeah, I really like it, and I really like the ship as well. There's just something about it that really speaks to me. Good evening, Spencer Copeland. Good evening, Ivory Horns. Good to have you both. 7 LTI tokens. Holy cow, man! That's a little bit crazy. Holy cow! That's crazy. Were they all the same thing, or were they different things? But yeah, that's a lot of basis for upgrade. Yeah, so moving on, the 2 ships that I doubt I will change for the time being, the Perseus, obviously, Perseus crew represent. I love my Perseus, even though I haven't seen it yet. It is 100% my baby. I love what I think it's going to end up doing in the game, and I can't wait for it to come out. And when it does, obviously, we'll do a big community event. We'll get as many Persei together as we can. If you don't have one, you're welcome to crew my ships, and I'm sure other people will say the same. So between that and the C8R Pisces, which I think is just one of the best shuttle runabout ships in the game, medical, very rapid, great thrusters, dinky, gets in and out quickly. Yeah, I absolutely love it. So those 2 ships are my thing. Between them, these ships, that's what my fleet. If you ignore the Vulcan, if you ignore the Medevac, that is what my fleet looks like right now. So get rid of those. Getting a bit annoying now with all the bugs. But yeah. Delete selected. Okay. So that's what my fleet looks like. Okay. All pulses, says Ivory. 7 of them. Holy moly. Yeah, that's still a fair amount of money, I guess. My C1 will become a Zeus MR, says Mad. Yeah, nice. I'm interested to see what the Zeus's look like. They're going to be good looking ships, I think. My Retaliator went in the garbage this ILW, says Thor. Still no pilot guns, bad cargo grid for the price. The elevator button being 180 degrees wrong annoyed me, and the nerf from 6 to 4 torps. Um, yeah, I think that's the I think there's definitely change with it. Um, it's an awful lot of firepower, but then as we found out at the moment, I don't really feel like you can, or I can. Other people might be able to. I don't really feel like I can gauge its combat power because we're having like a really weird time in the game where time to kill's gone up massively. It doesn't really make sense what's going on, so I don't feel like it's the right time for me to judge a ship. So I'll sit on it for a while. But I do like it, and I do like the fact it's going to be the first ship with modularity, even if my feeling on the modules it has at the moment is that they're a bit basic. Um, they don't really show kind of imagination with what can be done with modules. It's only to be expected that the easy ones will be the ones that they put in first. So yeah, no plans for any of them, says Tier Zero. The 22 X1s in my buyback when you could still get it LTI with credits, and I went a bit overboard with my vision for a fleet. Nice. Where's the Idris? Says Avi. You want that S10? Well, interestingly, so here's a couple of CCUs that I have sat in my hangar right now as we speak. This is what I mean about swatting. Tries to get in my eyes. Don't know what it is. I must taste something. That Perseus, says Chris. Right. Tasty as. What is quite good fun, if you go to, I have Edison to thank for this. So if we take out the official, and then we go find the Perseus again, I actually have this one. I have the Thundercow paint thanks to Edison. So that one, yeah, very much a kind of German World War II surface raider style in both the turrets, in what I think the gameplay is, and now the paint as well. It just, yeah, it looks sexy. Can't wait. So I have a couple of CCUs that I'm sat on at the moment as well, from nothing in particular. Okay, they don't form part of a chain as we speak, but it's these 3 bad boys. So I managed to pick up the War Bond Perseus to Polaris, which is about 60, 65, maybe even $75, which I picked up for just over £20 UK. So that's a nice increase. And sure, the Perseus is going to go up in price, but then so is the Polaris, because the Polaris is about to come out and we know they go up on launch. So I'm kind of hoping that that change stays, or the difference stays roughly the same. So yeah, and then I have very, very small upgrades, I think, from the Starfarer to both the Endeavour and the Crucible. And it's my belief that this is going to be a very, um, what's the word I'm looking for? These are going to get significant price increases. So those CCUs will be very valuable. $5 to a significantly more expensive ship. If you look at what happened with the Hull series, now that all the other ships have gone on, the prices have had to move to make range for all the new ships that sit in the cargo profession, which is why the D and the E are now significantly more expensive than they were before. It's happening to a couple other ships as well. And I genuinely think if you look at the Endeavour and what they're trying to do for it, for the price at the moment, it's a steal. Look at the Crucible again, for the size of the ship and where it sits in the gameplay, it's going to go up because there's just not a lot of space price wise between the Vulcan and the Crucible to fit every other ship. And sure, some ships might go above that, or 1 or 2 ships might go above that. But yeah, that's why I'm sitting on both of those. It's not necessarily that I think the ships themselves are going to be incredible. It is to do with the fact that the Polaris that CCU seems too good to be true. And the Crucible and the Endeavour, I think you can get massive price increases. I am very tempted though with the Endeavour with that modularity. I am tempted to go through that, depending on how it actually pans out that they play and what they do and that sort of stuff. Now you're throwing shade, says Chris, on my Perseus that doesn't have that library. Sorry, Data. Yeah, I just love it. There are some ones kicking around, so you might still be able to get Thundercloud. Just be careful because it will be trading from other players, and it comes with all the, you know, concerns and the risks that you would normally associate with buying with direct from other people online. It's a very nice paint, very World War II. Madwild says, yeah, absolutely, mate. That's exactly why I liked it. Almost there, says Macho. Yeah, it's not far off, right? We've got the Galaxy coming. The Perseus won't be far behind. So yeah, looking forward to that. Few of the concierge are close, but yeah, right now, it's definitely a great looking paint. Yeah, I just hope when John Crew said they were upgunning the Polaris, I hope they go S5 at most. Yeah, it's an interesting one because they talk about going to upgunning it to quote unquote, kind of stick with the other, or to challenge the other capital ships, which would indicate size 7, because that's kind of what they said, right? Is size 7 is the first size of gun that's going to really challenge big ships as well. The process was so interesting. That's why the Ion is so interesting, and so on and so forth. Um, yeah. Uh, then again, when you look at a lot of the other turrets, they are so small for the size of ship that is. But then again, you're right. I mean, I'm with you on this, mate. I don't think it should have size 7s on that thing, mainly because that's what the torps are for. Those ridiculously sized torps are its weapon against other capital ships, and it's a corvette. It's not designed to slug it out with the big ships. It's designed to come in and present another threat in a fleet battle. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Monterevi says, yeah, if they keep the concepts for the Endeavour and the Crucible as they're described, they are pretty undervalued. Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I think that's going to go. Monterevi says, of course, the Reclaimer as well. IMO is slightly undervalued. Yeah, I agree. I think when they first put it together, they didn't realize, I don't think they had any idea just how much money they were going to bring in through ship sales, right? And the fact that it was going to be increasing year on year. So the way to have turned those sales off very early, it would have been a bad step by CIG to go and kind of price those ships really highly, because people just wouldn't have bought into it at that stage. Now that they've got traction with the community, they can go into releasing slightly more expensive ships, like the ridiculously priced Idris and Javelin and everything else that sits in that range. The idea that you'd even pay that for a game, let alone a part of a game, was unheard of prior to Star Citizen. So yeah, 100%. Size 6, hopefully, if it goes size 7, it feels like it'll be an arms race to upgun everything. Agreed. It will go up to size 7, says Macho. I don't know if it's if that's where it is, if that's what's going on. It's not the first time CIG have made a claim about something competing or being better than something else, and then not delivering it. If you listen to most people, the idea that the oh god, I've lost the name now. The Odyssey was the Carrack killer. Most people don't think that it is, right? So they make a claim that something's going to compete or be better. It doesn't necessarily mean what we think it means. So upgunning it might not be that it's going to get size 7s. There are lots of gun sizes on there. Lots of them could be sent to other sizes, right? Let me see if I can swap. Fuck it. I think I got him. Did I get him? I don't know. I think I got him. Yeah. So there's that. Okay. Fucking bugs everywhere. This really annoys me because normally I got the bug spray and I can do some. I'm about to lose my shit. I don't know about you guys. Fuck off. It's because I got the windows open. It's too hot to have the windows closed. It's still too light and too attractive for them to have the windows open. I just fucking It's because I live near there's a swampland or I say swampland. There's like a marshland nature reserve nearby and woods. Literally, I could throw a stone from my window and it would land in the trees. So yeah, fucking just annoys me. Don't like stuff around my eyes. But yeah, okay. So, what do you think about the torp missile speed changes and rechanges? I think the ability to fly into your own missiles is daft. I don't like that. Even if initially they just have a speed burst when they get away and then they drop down in speed. I think torpedoes were always too quick. I think torpedoes right now, because they can be shot, that torpedoes are probably working more as what I was expecting. The idea that you need to focus on them to the exclusion of all else, which gives you a fairly reasonable chance of hitting them. But that's the whole point, right? In that sort of fight, when you've got lots of fighters going around, you don't tend to fight in isolation. So you don't go, I'm going to put one torpedo in with nothing else to shoot at and expect that to be effective, because of course it's not going to be. What you do in that situation is you try and saturate their defenses. You give them too many things to think about at once. So you put a couple of size 5 torps down, you put a size 9 torp down, you get something like an Ares, Iron or Inferno, whichever, going in and doing that. And then the turrets have got so many choices. You're not only maxing out what each turret can fire on, you're also giving that ship a huge command and control challenge, because how do you coordinate that? If you're 3k out and you yeet a torpedo at something, that ship has to recognize it, communicate it to the turrets. The turrets have to locate it and then engage it. And if they were as successful as they were, well, torpedoes just become the meta, right? Because you just kill everything with them, and then it's all down to eclipses and it's all down to retaliators, which makes the downsize of the retaliator make more sense. Yeah, there's all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So that. I think the missile speed changes need to, potentially be a little bit more or a little bit less pronounced. So sure, decrease them, but don't decrease them so much that you can actually fly into them yourselves. So yeah, that's that. I tend to think it should have size 4 to 6 guns on the Polaris. They didn't spec them though. Yeah, exactly that. Also, rip the wallet for Polaris rearming 100%. That's going to be rough, right? So yeah, Idris seems downright reasonable compared to the Javelin, especially for those who melted in DCCUs to reclaim their money. Yeah, that right. The Nautilus has size 7s, and its main thing is dropping mines. Yeah, but it only has size 7s. The mines thing. Let me put it this way. I'm going to take an Idris, and I'm going to put it somewhere in Stanton, and you've got to find it. Right? Which shouldn't be too hard, because when you think about the detection range on the Idris, actually 40 to 60k out, there or thereabouts, you'd see this thing miles away, right? Now, if that sounds impossible, now we're going to assume that mines aren't going to start tracking from 40k away. So you have to be even closer to trigger the mines. And if you're clever, what you can do is you can start to approach planets from directions that aren't expected. So you can, go after you can, you can go between 2 planets, stop in the middle, and then go to the planet that you're actually coming from. So you're not actually coming from anywhere. From the planet's perspective, it's not like, okay, they're coming from Microtech, so this is the closest point to Microtech, so this is where they're going to arrive. That's not what you're looking to do with avoiding mines. You jet out, and then it's like, okay, they're coming from a point in space. Can you narrow it down? No. And that's the thing with the mines. Whereas the Polaris doesn't need that size 7 because it has torps. So the thing that the size 7s would do, the torps are already doing better. So yeah, I don't think it needs it. What it might need is a little bit more anti-fighter defense, which means the size 3s might go up a little bit. You know, maybe one turret goes to size 7, possibly, but that's that. I think, to be honest, they probably need to hold off doing anything to the size of the guns on the Polaris, whilst they figure out what they're doing with combat as it is at the moment, because combat as it is at the moment is very obviously borked. So fix it at the moment so that you can see whether or not the changes that you are making are actually positive changes or negative changes. Changing stuff when you don't even know how to test that change. I mean, do I need to say how stupid that sounds, or is that, are we there? Are we there yet? So yeah, that one. Yeah, not a single ship uses size 6 guns. I think something had size 6 guns back in the day. Someone, yeah, the Gemini. Thank you, Edison. Yeah, back in the day. But yes, there's no explanation for why that gap exists yet. So that's that. But we don't know yet. Is the bottom one. The Odyssey was a weird one for AV. It's larger on the outside, but the hangar and mining, it's like it lost a repair and drones. So it's just kind of a pick your priorities. Yeah, and that's where I sit with it. I think the Odyssey, once we start understanding things like how big systems are, how long it takes to go places, how much effort it takes to stay out there in terms of fuel and supplies and everything else, I think the Odyssey will look a lot stronger. I think within the confines of Stanton, the Odyssey doesn't stand a chance. But yeah. They did say the torp missile speed thing was temp for trying to locate bugs. Good, yeah, and that makes sense, right? That's that. Don't forget missiles like Rattlers, aka cluster missiles. Yeah, 100%. At the moment, you can even shoot down missiles. Heck, even NPCs can shoot down sorts of missiles. Yeah, it was really interesting. After 323, we went after one of the Xeno threat incursions, and all 6 torps at the Hammerhead were shot down by the NPCs. All 6 of them. I think one hit and the Hammerhead just giggled like it was nothing. I don't think its hull even went red. Either that or it was just a really close explosion, as far as the damage model was concerned. Yeah, he got one. Fuck it. So yeah, there's that, right? But yeah, it's there are issues, right? Hearing you talk about fleet taxes, I believe you like the Lost Fleet books by Jack Campbell. Pilgrim, that's not the first time I've had that recommended. I might have to go and pick them up. I've got a couple of books sat in a cart on Amazon waiting to go. One is non-Star Citizen related. One is Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning, which is the story of a police reserve battalion, German police reserve battalion in World War II. It's recommended by a guy called Jordan Peterson, which I'm sure most of us are aware of on some level. But I'm very much going to pick that up. The other one is a book called Demons by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is again another book recommended by the same guy. But I might add that as well because I've got some reading to do. I want to catch up on some reading. Nautilus should have size 6 guns. It's not designed for slugging out. Agreed. Yeah, and I think if you look at capital ships, like at one, even a twin size 7 turret against the sorts of capitals that they're talking about, is just not going to cut it. You know, it's enough to poke damage at a capital ship, maybe, but it's not going to be enough to do anything real. Yeah, so you think it was for the range, lay the minefield and made them go through it to your objective, spider trap style. Yeah, I think the problem with this is the reason the Nautilus might be effective in the game is because gamers don't like waiting for anything, right? This is why fast travel was. I'm going to sip this after this. This is why fast travel was invented. Because I've just finished watching a couple of videos by a couple of Milsim players, Karma Cut and Operator Drewski. They both play Armor and Armor Reforger and all that sort of stuff. They also like playing a lot of things like Tarkov and all the upcoming games in that area. Not Tarkov so much after the drama, but everything else. And I'm not going to lie, most of their ambushes work because people aren't thinking tactically, they're thinking like a game. Right? So in a game, it's like, I must travel to the location to do the thing. So to do the thing is the fighting. So the fighting is at the location. And the way most gamers think about it is I've just got to get there. So all the gamers take the quickest route. Right? We all land right at the bunker to do the bunker thing. That's not how the military work. You don't land at the bunker to do the bunker thing. That's ridiculous. You land clicks out and you are under the cover of darkness. And you watch the place for a while. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to do that, but the reason mines are going to work from the Nautilus is that most gamers are going to go from A to B by the quickest route, which means you can anticipate the route they're going to take. You can anticipate the orbital markers they're going to use, and what you do is you go to that orbital marker and you mine the living crap out of it and watch people blow up. That is not to say that those mines aren't entirely unavoidable, because they are. And that's what I'm saying. Everyone's saying, oh, you need an escort for your cargo. Some places, sure. But the majority of it, the best way to win a fight as something that's not designed to fight is not be there in the first place. Avoid it entirely. I feel like I should have a Sun Tzu quote for this, but my brain can't fish one out for me. Right? It's being away from the enemy. So you don't take the predictable routes, because quantum enforcement devices are great if you know where the enemy are or where they're coming from and to. Otherwise, great. I'm going to go from one side of Stanton to the other. You've got to stop me. Go. But I don't know where they're starting. No, you don't. And I don't know why they're ending. No, you don't. Even if I told you the jump point, you'd struggle, right? The only way to do that is at where they start, if you can get there beforehand, or at their destination, if you know it. Anything in the middle is really hard, and now you've got one chance to deal with that stuff. Right? So this is, I think, where a lot of the idea of running fleets is going to change. The idea that, yes, there are loads of pilots at the moment who are very good pilots, PvP-wise, but they're only good when they get into combat. They're only good because you put a marker on their target, and that marker is constantly updating. The minute you treat it like something like armor, where you don't know where your enemy is all the damn time, they're going to struggle, a lot of them, because they're used to playing it like that game. Whereas this is, once Star Citizen's up and running, as an org, everything is under threat all of the time. All your logistics, wherever you camp out, all of that stuff is going to be under threat, and it's going to be tough, right? So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Sorry, I'm just Rash. Thank you very much for that link. I'll take a look while we're talking, and we'll see how we go. Because I think I've got to sign in ? But yeah, we'll have a look in just a second. But thank you for that. So yeah, thoughts on the Tally turret rework mentioned. Is it enough? I don't think we can tell whether it's enough. I think it's a step in the right direction. Certainly. I think what they could potentially do. I mean, the problem is if you upgun it too much, it becomes way overpowered for what it is. If you reduce the number of turrets, and upgun it, then you're going to lose the feeling of that camaraderie of being in a bomber, of being in that kind of World War II with 50 cals everywhere, dakka 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 as stuff's going on. You're going to lose a lot of that feeling, which is bad, in my view. However, the 6, is it crew that thing takes to do its normal job, the Retaliator bomber job or the torpedo bomber job. There's just so many other things you can do with 6 crew. 6 crew is a fully manned Perseus without blading anything. And if you look at in terms of, all right, the Retaliator is burst damage. So I think to answer your question, what's likely is they will reduce the number of turrets on the tally slightly, potentially, and upgun it if they're going to make any more changes. I just don't think it kind of works on that front. But yeah, so we'll have a look. Yeah. The torps will be shut down. You need to disable the torps before you use the missiles or torps. Yeah, or the other part of it is that you launch it so close, so you dumbfire, you come charging in at your target and literally point blank them with the torpedoes. The other way you do it, like I say, is you overwhelm their targeting solution. So you keep spawning missiles at the ship, so the ship's got loads of missile warnings, and then in there somewhere you launch 2 torpedoes at it. And now it's got to determine where the torpedoes are against all that background noise and all of the other targets. And once they locate that, they've got to tell the turrets and direct the turrets to it, and the turrets have to hit it before that torpedo hits you, which isn't pleasant. That's quite a challenge. So it's not just about necessarily needing to destroy the turrets. It's you're thinking about it the right way, right? All I'm saying is that there's different ways to neutralize the turrets. To take them out of action is one way. There are certainly other ways you can do it as well. And interestingly, if you could interfere with the ship's communications, so jam it or make it sound laggy or just fill it with white noise, that would be really cool. That would be a job for the Sentinel or future warfare ships potentially. Even if you don't jam it and don't render it useless, if you just fill it full of static, that'll be kind of cool as well. You're not removing people's ability to use it, but you are making communication harder. So yeah, there's plenty of those bits and pieces. AV says it's kind of interesting to me. It will force multiplayer teamwork fighters along with some bombers rather than just solo tallies. Yep, good to help reduce random torp trolling. Yes, the idea that and this is why fighters exist, right? Is why would you send fighters up against something like the Bismarck? Why would you send fighters up? The Bismarck's a poor choice because the Germans weren't really operating aircraft carriers. Let's use the example of Japan, right? US Japan, 1945, 1946. Look at Midway and things like that, right? The reason you were sending fighters into those conflicts was to defend your own ships from torpedoes and bomber attack, but also to defend your own fighters to make sure they made it to the target. So combined air wings like that, really, really useful. Midway's a good film for stuff like that. It does kind of give you a bit of a picture for things like that. Yeah. No, a lot of people would just close and rapid drop the torps to kill bounties and fly away, and it didn't really make sense. Yeah, 100%. And the cost of torps is going to affect that quite a bit as well. So I think I think they're working on mitigating that. I don't think that's too much of a surprise. But yeah, I suppose this is a good time to talk about it, right? Is the difference between hard kill and soft kill. Okay, hard kill is killing something, right? It's blowing it up, it's sinking it, it's that sort of stuff. It's bizarrely soft death is also hard kill, right? That ship now can't fight back. Soft death, or soft kill measures, sorry, are other terms. They are mobility killing something. They are neutralizing its ability to do what it needs to do without actually destroying the platform. Okay, so for example, your Ironclad assault full of 5 tanks, rather than destroy it, if I can neutralize the front ramp in such a way that you can't repair it, that's a soft kill. You've still got the tanks on it, but the question is, well, what can you do? It can't do anything. Mobility killers, Hellwinter says, you knock out its engines. Well, how can it land stuff if the engines don't work? Yeah, so that's a soft kill measure. In a soft kill, obviously things can be repaired. But in modern combat with large platforms like warships, soft death is basically what you aim for, or soft kill measures are what you aim for. Soft kill, hard kill in terms of incoming missiles. Soft kill is chaff, redirecting the missile. More to the point, directing it away from yourself. Hard kill is destroying the missile. That kind of gives you an idea of the difference between the two. So yeah, and that is also going to apply to. I think a lot of people are expecting their opponents to blow up and stuff in this game, and especially for the larger ships, for like caps and stuff. That's not. I don't think that's what they're aiming for. I think it's going to be a lot more soft death. Ships are going to retreat, and that's baked up by the whole resource network gameplay, right? The engineering and all that sort of stuff. If we can kill stuff as fast as we've been killing it, then that gameplay loop is completely pointless because you'll die before you actually get to do that. You imagine on board, your engineers looking at the status of their systems, they identify that something's damaged and the relay needs replacing. So someone's got to go grab a relay or have a relay on them. They replace the relay, then they run up and repair it. And then the engineer goes, great, I've got something else for you to do. By that stage, in most scenarios previously, the ship's blown up at that point. So they do need to extend the time to kill out on the bigger ships. I don't agree with it on the fighters, because it's not like you're going to get out of your arrow with your repair gun mid-fight to sort your ship out, because you just die. So I think, there needs to start to be that gap now between fighters, whether they're single crew or multi-crew, and the larger ships, 4, 5, 6 crew. But yeah. Ted Jacobs, 23. Good evening, bud. Welcome to the stream. When will scanner improvements on some of the ships come? That will help find them. Yeah, so the interesting thing with scanners, and why am I over here? There we go, that's better. When will scanner improvements on some of the ships come? That will help find them. Yeah, so the scanners need to change massively. There's I'm trying to. Sorry, what I'm doing in my head is, obviously, as someone as ex-military, there are levels of detail that I can't go into. Right? There's lots of stuff that's publicly available. I've also got to avoid using specific examples because I could land myself in hot water, and I don't want to. But basically, if you think about the way radar and scanning works, okay, radar and scanning is an active process. What a radar does is it sends a pulse out. That pulse hits something and reflects back at it. Okay, and when that pulse is received by the radar measures the time between the pulse going out and the pulse being received, and that time indicates the distance, right? And that's how radar works. Okay, because on most radars, height finding isn't possible. Because what you're doing is sending a beam down, and the radar doesn't understand elevation, which is why only specific types of radars can height find, right? You know there's an aircraft down there, you just don't know how high it is. Your radar's coming back off a bearing that's just coming from that direction. You don't know whether it's coming from straight at you or straight up or somewhere in the middle. So there's that sort of stuff. So passive, you are listening. And you could be listening for other ships' radars. You could be listening for other ships' radio communications. You could be listening for satellite communications. You could be listening for a lot, right? And the best way to think about it is, imagine you're in the dark, okay? You're on passive and someone else is on active, right? Active is the equivalent of shouting, right? When you're passive, you can hear where they are. You can hear which direction they're in. What you'll struggle with is how far they are away. Okay? And it's that sort of stuff, is that you can see when something's coming at you. You can see how powerful that radar is. You can see what frequency it's working in, which tells you what sort of radar it is. Navigation radars work differently to search radars, which work differently to air search radars, which works differently to fire control radars. And the way they work differently is they all sit in different frequency bands. Again, this is all publicly available. I'm giving nothing away, right? So you can see that there is a fire control radar or there is a navigation radar. And then what you can actually do is, based on that radar, you can probably identify what type of radar. And a group of radars indicate what type of ship it is, because different ships carry different radars and different loadouts, right? Thinking about it in a gaming term. Active is this scanning thing. So the idea that you can pick stuff up without it being an active process like that. Like you can locate something around you like you do in Star Citizen. That's active. That's not passive. The game's not got that right. And you know, it's the reason that this is going to be important is because it changes, right? Because if you are active, you're going to get more information. You'll find out not just the direction, but also the range. But people will hear you much further away than you detect them, because that beam that goes out doesn't just have to go out, it has to come back as well. So that's the pulse from my hand, that's the pulse going out, that's the distance that it comes back. Okay, if it's too far away and you don't have the distance, let's say it only comes back this far before you've lost the signal, that far away to where my knuckle is, is how far away you can be heard. Just because it wasn't strong enough to come back to you doesn't mean that someone else didn't hear it further away. So those people don't get information on your location. What they do get is they get information on what direction you're in, which, if you're in your hull D, tells me I don't want to go that way. I don't want to go that way at all. I want to go this way instead. Okay? So that's the trade-off. That's the benefit of always being active is you get more accurate information. The downside of always being active is that you give yourself away. People will detect you at a greater range that you'll detect them. The downside is they'll only know a range, they won't know a bearing as well. So yeah. Napo, good evening. Matt P, good to see you. Lots of new faces in chat. So yeah, hopefully this is leaky information. What is this world of tanks, says Amy? Yeah, absolutely that. So this is basically how it works, right? And then heat and heat and all that sort of stuff as well works in the same way. So yeah, they're all very, very similar. So yeah, hopefully that's how we can make the difference between, or that they can start making this difference between active scanning and passive scanning, because at the moment it really doesn't work. Everything seems to be detectable at roughly the right range, and it the thing about scanning is it's not just about finding other people; it's about remaining undetected yourself. And sometimes you've got to do that by being scary. What fleets will do is they'll use something called a radar picket. Okay, so what you do is you have your fleet, and then what you do is you stick one ship all the way out there. Right, it's miles away from everyone else. But by miles, I mean it's over the horizon, 50, 60, 80 miles away. And what that ship does is that ship is active. And that ship is looking for your opponent. And that means that if it is attacked overwhelmingly, you're not dragging your entire enemy force onto you. And then what that ship's able to do is, through secure comms that can't be tracked like that, it's passing that image back to the rest of the fleet. So the rest of the fleet sees what that ship sees. And that's probably about as far down that description as I can go without risking landing myself in hot water. But that it's through a system. Again, the name of the system is very old. I think it's even been replaced now. There's a system called Link. It's exactly what Swamp Rabbit says is what AWACS use. AWACS generate the picture and then pass the image back to the rest of the fleet. This is precisely what the Terrapin will do. Whether it's able to feed that picture back or not, we don't know. But being able to detect things early warning, you've only got one person in there, so, it's not a great loss if it's destroyed, versus a Polaris or an Idris, right? That's the whole point of terrapins, of those sorts of ship. So yeah, you could hide and do repairs in an asteroid field. You'd have to lose your opponent first, but yes, good. Yeah, so that's the difference between the two. That'll be cool. So IWAX, Carrick or Aquila, possibly something like that. Yeah, good evening, Shadow Girl. Good to see you. So yeah, that's that we're looking at. I just wanted to go and have a look at. I think, if I'm right, socially confused has just given me the picture of his fleet. So let's have a look at open link. Go. If you're happy for me to have a look at this socially, is that all right? I don't know if you're still here. But yes, if you're happy for us to have a look, we shall have a look now. Pause, waiting for a response. Perfect. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Okay, so here's what. Let's have a look. Okay, socially, if you want to add anything in here, then please do. But we're just going to go and have a look. I'm going to zoom in slightly so it shows us the a little bit. So what it says just behind me here is it says Odyssey and Perseus are possible jump-off points. Ship under the top line are part of the CCU chain. Okay, so the top is the stuff where you want it to end up, and then the CCU chain up to that platform. So here, for example, we've got the hull up to the Perseus, up to the Odyssey, up to the Polaris. Is that about right? Top is final, yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Yeah, so the Nurser, I think I like that idea. Keeping it until it's released in game for purchase. Yeah, I think that's what mine will keep doing as well. And if I've got nothing to put it towards, the likelihood is I will end up, kind of keeping it anyway. It won't get melted. It can't be because it's built on a referral bonus. I believe is the rule. So it's going to go up through that anyway. But I'd really like the look of your fleet there. You've got a couple of things to do. You got the Ironclad assault now. Is that what the Liberator was? Or it's sorry. So that's the chain. So it goes up through the Ironclad and the Ironclad assault to the Liberator. You've got the Galaxy up there. You've got the Ironclad as part of the chain, and you've got the. I'm just gonna. It's because it's an image, so it's not saved it particularly well. But you got the Zeus. ES, I'm guessing. So yeah, nice. Yeah, not a bad little choice. Can't be melted is the Valkyrie. You've got a Raylan in buyback. Nice. It's not a bad looking fleet. You've got a nice range of gameplay there. You've got salvage, you've got moving, you've got the Galaxy, which gives you 3 options there. You've got finding cargo and everything else. You've got the Endeavour, and who the hell knows what that's going to be at the end of the game, right? Banning Merchantman, I can only hope. A good friend of mine has mentioned that they might have one in buybacks. I need to reach out to him again and see whether or not he's still happy to do that. Because if he is, I 100% want that ship off him. But yeah, not a bad little spread. Reclaimer again, non-combat gameplay. Polaris, yeah, nice, solid choice, I think. What I really like about the Polaris, aside from its immediate combat things, is it's very. I find it very similar to the Idris in its military application, right? Despite the fact that in a fleet battle they have very, very different roles, they still strike me as very similar kind of in their versatility. So they've got the ability to have a ship on board. They've got brig, they've got medical supplies, they've got the ability to deploy to multiple theaters, deal with those different things. Things like security patrols, counter smuggling, kind of rocking up at stations and providing a security presence. They've got a lot of crew on, so having a couple of crew off doing something isn't damaging the ship's ability to do its core role. They've got the range, they've got the sustainability. They're just really, really nice ships for that sort of role. Frigates, destroyers, cruisers within the military in a fleet environment have very, very different roles, but they all share a couple of things. They have decent sensor suites. This is talking about real world military now. They have the ability to carry their own helicopter on board, allowing them to do that. They have their own sea boats to go off and do boardings and things like that, with a helicopter covering them. They have medical facilities on board, albeit quite limited, but they do have medical facilities on board and that sort of stuff. They are very, very capable platforms that you can send to almost any sort of scenario, right? You can send them into areas that need stabilization. You can send them in for disaster relief. You can send them in for supply runs. You can send them in to evacuate expatriates, people, that's what we call people who've moved out of the UK. So UK citizens who now live abroad. We did this very much in kind of the Middle East a few years ago when it was all kicking off. We sent ships down there to bring them back, and on board they were able to process their right to citizenship. They were brought on board. They were brought back safely. I think they brought them back to Cyprus and then flew them back. But that's the whole point of those ships, is you can send them to lots of areas. The Perseus, whilst it is very focused on one role and has that one role in mind, it is also not versatile as a multi-role ship in the same way that the Polaris or the Idris is. So yeah, Perseus very much focused on one thing, very good at what it does, lacks the capability to go and do a lot of other roles well, lacks the crew to go and do a lot of other roles well. And that, I think, like CIG are getting that balance quite nicely. Yeah. So I'm not into combat, but someone can captain the Polaris and I'll hang out in the med base Associated Confused. Nice. Yeah, I think you've got a really, really nice spread there. You've got your salvage, you've got little salvage that you can go and do by yourself. You've got the Apollo triage, which is a really nice touch. I don't see a lot of people going for the triage, but it's the Apollo. I like that. You got the Sulen, the Raelian. It looks like the Sulen quickly, but yes, you got the Raelian, and yeah, really nice setup. Your cargo thing there, I guess, is possibly the Liberator, more likely the Galaxy, given its role, and then the Banu, obviously, but that's a significant bit of kit. Yeah, 100%. So your Vulture's going to go up through the Apollo to the Galaxy. Your Raylan's going to go up to the Ironclad, and the Zeus is just staying. I take it. But yeah, really nice, mate. That's a really nice fleet. I think what I like here is what you haven't done is you haven't put all your eggs into one basket, so to speak. You've got lots of different roles. You've got the Banner, you've got the Liberator, you've got the Reclaimer, the Endeavor. Like I said, who the hell knows what that's going to be? But it's for sure it's going to be different than the rest of them. You've got the Zeus, which is nice because it's not going to rely on the multi-crew. The Galaxy, the Liberator, they are small crew options. Your Reclaimer, your Endeavor, your Banu are mid or going to large crew. Then you've got Polaris, which is big crew, but as you say, you're not combat focused. So that's really nice. Sebastian, hello, bud. Welcome to the stream. Could you see a place for a vehicle like a Mule XL? I'm thinking like a lorry-sized vehicle. Yeah, 100%. I think it's likely we're going to get much larger kind of vehicles like that, even if they're like the same sort of cargo trolleys that we see from. Fuck off! I feel like I need a pair of chopsticks, just like. Um, but yes, I think absolutely those things are going to be useful. Especially with base building, there's like moving a lot of supplies around and stuff like that to be able to build in different locations and being able to shift that stuff around. I think that's going to be like really useful and very immersive as well. Whilst it's great running around with stuff with tractor beams, it it still feels like the magic beam stuff, and I'm still struggling with the idea of beam sitters, and it is not my favorite concept. So yeah, I had a ton of small ships, but listening to him probably has got me to upsize and simplify my fleet. Yeah, I mean, so knowing where you want stuff to go is great. Not knowing where you want stuff to go is fine too. Just to go back to kind of my fleet, and I'll talk about that with the intentions and stuff. Knowing that you want the option to go up, because there's loads of other ships that I like the look of, right? There's loads of ships that I go, I like that. I like the idea of the Legionnaire. I think the Legionnaire is a nice one. At the moment, yes, I've got the Taurus, but I can be potentially persuaded to go somewhere else with it. I've kind of fallen out of love at the minute. The Spirit, I've actually quite enjoyed flying that one around, although, as with all Crusader ships, too many friggin' doors. Just like stop it. There doesn't need to be this many doors on a ship. It's going to be useful. I know when room system and life support and fires come in. I get it, but right now it's just ugh, annoying. So there's those two bits. I like the Sulan, I like the Retaliator. There are other ships that I keep kind of looking at and thinking, yeah, I kind of like that as a ship. It's not the Liberator, I'll tell you that for nothing. Ugh. But yeah, so yeah, I think the important thing is that I hear what the Inforunner says, and they give some really really good advice. The danger is, however, um, with always going big ships, is the crew requirement. And at the moment, looking at your top line, there are one, two, maybe three ships you could do with one crew, which is the Zeus, the Galaxy, the Liberator. Um, Everything else in there is going to need a lot of crew, I think. And even then, for the Galaxy, like loading and unloading cargo, that's going to be a pain in the ass. The refining might work. The medical, probably not. Not with one crew. You'd need someone to fly it around and someone to do the medicing. But yeah, um, that would be my only concern, and it's not necessarily specific to you. Um, I think you know. Sorry, I'm just giggling because I'm watching people trying to get me to roast people's fleets. So I'm not trying to roast anyone. This is a very positive fleet thing. Um, but yeah, I think I'm just worried that people keep getting told to go for bigger ships, and the problem is that not everyone's going to have the crew to be able to run those things regularly. And I think the Polaris is a really really strong example of that. The Polaris has a huge crew requirement. Um, I know sometimes it's tough to get four players to play Helldivers. You know, there are some ships in the game, the Idris, the Javelin being two of them, that are absolutely Org ships. I would suggest that the Polaris is very strongly stepping into the Org ship space as well. I can't remember. I mean, we might have got close to that, I think, when we did a couple of Siege of Horizons. We got up to whatever it was, 13, 14 people at one stage. That's just enough to crew a Polaris. So yeah, um, but yeah, really nice fleet, mate. Like I say, I just as long as you know you've got the players to do that, that's perfect. Just as a general tip to everyone else, not necessarily yourself socially, is just to make sure that you don't push it past your own crew requirements. It's absolutely reasonable to keep, for example, the Pioneer versus the Mole or the Orion, um, because sorry, the Pioneer, the Prospector versus the Mole or the Orion, because the Prospector is one person and the Mole and the Orion isn't. That's a perfectly reasonable choice to make, a decision to have made. because you want to do it with just one person. So that's fine. Get that. But yeah. How's the betrayal ship going? Limited. You gotta drop it, man. It's all good. It's not gonna happen. You gotta let it go. Neofox, welcome to the stream, bud. Neofox has just posted what I assume to be their fleet. The Perseus, Polaris, Galaxy, the F8C Lightning, the F7A Hornet Mark II. Yeah, nice. Very combat focused, with the exception of the Galaxy. What's the plans for the Galaxy? Is there a particular module you're interested in, Neo? Or is it, you're not sure yet? Because that's a perfectly fine answer. It's a game. People are allowed to not be sure. But yeah, very, very combat based. Really nice ships in there. F8C, obviously up until recently, one of the most powerful ships in the game. It now handles like every other heavy fighter, which I believe is part of their baselining stuff, and that'll get changed in the near future. Perseus, Polaris, two very solid choices, two very different roles, but two very solid choices. And then the F7A Hornet Mark II. It's really hard to touch on the Hornet Mark II without bemoaning what they did to the Hornet Mark I. The poor Hornet Mark I. Yeah, no, I know, Limited, I know. I know, but you gotta let it go, dude. I know you are, mate. Yeah, retiring retiring a line of ships that people have bought out of a game before that game was released is a dickhole move, and you can't convince me otherwise. So yeah, doing the base building, so the refining and the fabricating, nice, like it. Sounds very much like kind of almost like an all solutions PMC fleet. Going and being able to provide support in a number of different roles, and also being able to build like forward positions for people. If that's what you're going for, then great. If not, let me know. But yeah, definitely seems to be that. Yeah, F8C is a master mode's disappointment, Chris. I believe that it's part of the baselining that they're doing. The idea is that all the heavy fighters were going to start in the same place, all the medium fighters, all the light fighters, same. And then they were going to move out from that and react them. I guess that it remains to be seen, right? Because at the moment it handles like a post office, frankly, when it flies. It's awful, and it needs changing. It probably needs toning down a little from what it was before, because it was incredibly powerful, but it does need to just be it just needs taken down a notch or two, or three. But yes, absolutely, it still needs to handle well. It looks that way. It looks like it handles well, so it should. Bloodsnuck, good evening. Wiggy One, hello. Good to see you all. But yeah, I hope they keep the Hornet Mark 1 still available in the second-hand market someday. Yeah, I mean, like, I like the idea of there being collector stuff, like the original Zeus, right? Not the remodeled stuff. Being able to find one, and even if you can't remodel it to fly it because it's just so old, there's no way. It's like, there's a reason now we don't have more Spitfires to go around, because they're so obsolete. No one's building these things anymore. Even if it's just something you can put in your hangar, or you can have you can donate it to an in-game museum, or loan it to one, and it has your player name on it, loaned by kind permission of Wiggy One, in that sort of thing would be awesome, right? And then people can go and see it when you find it in game. It makes these things really impressive finds. That sort of stuff would be really cool. But yeah, at a 30% discount compared to the new version, says Sebastian. Possibly, and kind of secondhand markets and chop shops and all that sort of stuff sounds good to me. The F7 Mark 1 lineup should at least be available in game for secondhand prices at scooters, which should also be in game. Don't know if I'm going to go with you with scooters. Oh, right. I'm on leave this week, so A, there should be a video. B, I've just like this is the first week of holiday I've had this year, so I'm dying. um, I'm looking forward to spending some time just recharging my batteries and stuff. But this is why I'm tired, and this is why I'm now, halfway through my first bottle of wine. There's another bottle of wine and a bottle of late bottled vintage port downstairs, all ready to go and be completely abused. But yes, so I apologise for yawning at you guys. It's not you, it's me. Um, but yeah, the F7 Mark One lineup should absolutely be available, and those who have them should be offered an upgrade. If you're going to shelve the line, give people the new stuff. Um, you know, the truth about this project is we must have thick skin because there's always more changes and balance and improvement coming down the pipes of Shadow Girl. So much is constantly changing even now. Yeah, I think this is and this is why I have problems with certain other streamers because they talk so apocalyptically about changes. This is going to break Star Citizen. No, we're not there yet. And this is also the reason why I have an issue when people talk about bugs, right? The analogy that I use, although it's not the greatest analogy, is they're building a house. Bug polishing is cleaning, right? It's cleaning stuff up. That's what bug polishing is in this analogy, right? What we're doing at the moment is they haven't built the first floor. There's no roof. There's no doors or windows. They're still pouring concrete. None of the walls have been plastered. And demanding that they bug fix and bring the game up to scratch is like saying, well, you haven't hoovered in a while. What? It doesn't make sense because even if they do hoover, the minute they start putting more stuff in, it's going to get more messy than it was before. And it's the same thing with bugs. As they introduce the armor system, if people think that the armor system is going to come in and not break things, they're kidding themselves. If they think the new scanning system is going to come in and not break things, they are kidding themselves. Because this is all still core stuff. We've got access to this game at a far earlier point than most people get access to any sort of game. This is it. And people demanding it. Yes, that stuff will happen, but it's so far down the road. Right now, they're just trying to find out if stuff works, and this is why we're getting things added and then they get left. Because what they've done is they've proved that tech can work. If something breaks it, that's bug fixing. That's something different. They don't need to go back and fix it every single time. The difference being because this is some weird hybrid monster between a very early alpha and a live service game, they're having to do things to keep us playing. The harsh reality is, if they hadn't released this as playable, the project would be so much further on than it is now. Because they wouldn't have had to go through all these release windows. They could have just cracked on. They wouldn't have to worry about bug fixing. They wouldn't have to react to what we have done. The game would be much further on in its progress. The reality is also that had they not released it, the game wouldn't have made anywhere near as much money as it has now, meaning that the scope wouldn't be anywhere near as big as it is now. A lot of the features that everyone's really looking for just wouldn't have made it onto the chopping block, let alone survived the chopping block. And so both of those statements are true at the same time. It had to go live service to keep people interested and to reassure people that it wasn't a scam. Doing so slowed everything down, meaning that we are still at the stage where they're adding core gameplay. We know this because we still don't have exploration, science, data running, hacking, half the cargo, half the bounty hunting. We don't have the working economy features yet. Armor isn't in. The breakable ships isn't in. Base building doesn't exist yet. The whole reputation system is still massively under. Server meshing isn't there. All of these things are still having to be built from the ground up, which is what happens in an alpha. So I know it's a bit ranty, and I don't mean to go there, quite yet. But what Shadow Girl says is exactly right: is that all these things are going to change, and they are going to change many more times. So when you go, yes, they finally got it right, accept the fact that it's not a final change. So whilst you might be thinking about it in final terms, the chances are it will change again. The good news of that coin, the flip side of that coin, the good news side, is that when you have something in the game that you don't like, it's not going to stay like that either. They're going to change that too. So it's worth bearing in mind. Yeah. Server meshing should be really fun for bugs too. Are you ready for it? Says Wiggy. Wiggy, yeah, 100%. That's kind of crazy, right? Because I think the bugs in server meshing will bring servers crashing to a halt and potentially require whole restarts of the game and some serious hot fixes. And there will be periods of the game at some point in server meshing, maybe not the 4.0, where we can't access it at all because something catastrophic is broken and the servers can't recover. So yeah, there's going to be lots of that sort of stuff. I think more systems need to come online before the game starts running better. 100%. There's no point in optimizing when you know you're just going to break it. I mean, people talk about, or I'm not saying us, but a lot of people have talked about in the past how Star Citizen's mismanaged and the management. Well, directing effort into something that you know is pointless because you're going to have to direct just as much effort in the future once all the features are in, and doing stuff now isn't going to make that process in the future easier or quicker. That's mismanagement, right? There's no point in doing it now, so don't do it now. It's like when you're in the kitchen cooking yourself some tea, right? And you go and chop one thing. What you don't do then is go put that in a bowl, clean the entire kitchen from top to bottom, and clean the oven, and then get the next ingredient out, chop that, put that in a bowl, clean the entire kitchen top to bottom, clean the oven, do the washing up, and then get the next ingredient out. If anyone cooks, I mean, imagine a lot of stuff just goes into the microwave, right? But there's a lot of those that it doesn't make sense because that cleaning, you're just going to get it messy again. Just get it messy, cook your tea, and then clean afterwards. And that's where we are, except the tea is taking years. Good evening, Jockcop. Good evening, Mad Teapot. Good to see you. Jambo Tech. Good to see you. Hey, good to Jambo. You haven't been back in a while. It's good to see you. And same with Mad and Jock. Good to see you both. Waiting for gas harvesting in the staff area. Yep, absolutely. That's another gameplay loop that's missing. I can't wait to get lost in the system jump. Find out where you'll end up. Somewhere where they're trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty, I should imagine. But yeah, and also hi to you too. But yeah, good to see you both. Yeah, so there's lots of stuff that needs changing. This master mode stuff, and I think there's, we're all going to talk about this in a very similar way, in that master modes doesn't feel like its final form, right? It doesn't feel like the game in its final form. I think it's going to change, whether it's a complete revolution and they go with something else entirely, or whether more likely that it'll just be iterated on and iterated on and iterated on. And in a couple of years, we'll be talking about, do you remember when master modes came in? It was crap. Now it's pretty good, but ages ago it was awful. I think that's likely where we're going to get to. Star Citizen lets you melt or change your ship if you don't like it. Other games let you rot with your regretted purchases. Agreed. I get what you're saying, but they have to do some of the painting because of the PU, which is why it's like 100%. And this is what I mean about it being a weird hybrid between a live service game and a game that's in alpha. That's the kind of trade-off, right? Is that they need to do some things because people are playing it, and they need to understand, even more so when Squadron 42 comes in, that what they have is a live service game, and people are going to be playing Squadron 42, which we all hope is a very polished experience. If they come over to Star Citizen and it's like it is at the moment, it's going to be the shock of their lives. Hopefully server meshing is in just enough time to make the servers run better, which makes everything run smoother, which makes the AI more reactive, which means they can test stuff out and actually watch the AI react as it's expected, so they can fix the actual problems and not go, well, we don't know how much of this is because the coding of the AI and how much is because the servers just aren't running quick enough to run the behaviors that we want it to run. So we can only hope that server meshing comes in for that. I just think it's worth noting at this point that server meshing is not a silver bullet. We've said the same for the replication layer, and we've said the same for streaming, and we've said the object container streaming and server container streaming and all that sort of stuff. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to suddenly be fixed. Persistence and the replication layer, all of these things are a process. Feels we're just on the border, just teetering and tippering over into a proper live service game. We can only hope, Jock, right? And again, it remains to be seen, now that they're pulling people out of Squadron 42 and putting them into the PU, how fast progress becomes, and how much further on we're going to be getting with stuff, and how much progress we're going to see and all that sort of good stuff. I mean, what I can say is that, if we look at the next patch, right, if we look at we look at 4.0, holy moly. Yeah. So additional player customization, great locations, all of Pyro, jump points, outposts, the space stations, the moons. We've got new animals, great. We've got fire hazards, engineering on a couple of platforms. We've got life support, yeah, and their components into vehicles. We got the solar burst stuff, great. The Zeus is coming. MFD rework is happening. Multi-tool updates, charge and drain, fire extinguisher updates. You'd hope so with fire, right? Transit system, mission system refactor, and the server meshing thing. Once again, huge changes to the game. Possibly the biggest change in any game ever, which is the transition to server meshing. It's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, but of course we've got this change now from we saw a couple of tests run where they were adding 2, 4, 800 people to a server to see what would happen. So, yeah. And yeah, limited 100%. They're not building the game from the ground up. That would make it a lot easier. They're doing full remodeling every 5 patches. Yeah, and you think of all these things, what they build for an internal test build versus what they can release to the public. The internal test build wouldn't need anything like the level of scrutiny that it's going through every patch to be released to the general public, because they get to say, yes, that's good enough, that's close enough, because people aren't, customers aren't forming their opinions. The players aren't forming their opinions on the basis of what we're doing. We've just got it as far enough as we need it to do the next thing. That's not happening when you're releasing it to the general public. So it's kind of interesting that they've gone live service. They had to convince everyone that it wasn't a scam. But it is one of those things that, it is slowing things down. It's both of these things. These things are not mutually exclusive. So yeah, I have a jetpack in my hangar already. BB-12 man maneuvering unit. Yeah, okay. Jetpacks are delayed until after the Banning Regimen. Where's my swords and jetpacks? I should go. Oh, I mean, where's the crossbow? I would have just set up for the crossbow, right? They showed that off ages ago. Give me the crossbow. But yes. So yeah. Lots to be thinking about, and lots to be kind of looking at as we go forward, and what's going to happen. It's just gone white because I've just raised up a news thing, but it's kind of covered in ads, and it just keeps throwing ads at me. So maybe we don't look at this one. I'm just trying to look at a couple of the news stories that were released. News stories that were released regarding Star Citizen hitting 700 million, which, as you know, happened recently. And I'm just kind of. Yeah, maybe we won't do that. Do you know what? Those comments are just full of crap. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want me to show your fleets, just let me know in the comments and I can show people's fleet. Um, Hell, I guess you're up, buddy, right? That's you playing Helldivers, right? Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Open link. Okay. Open link. Edison, I'm showing you yours whether you like it or not. Sorry, but Ape will do yours as well if you like. Um, let's have a look. Okie dokie. Perfect. Thanks, mate. Okay, so cool. Badgers in headlights. No, that's not badgers in headlights. That's badgers in headlights. There you go. Oh, now I can't see. That was bad. Yeah, no, it's really bright. There we go. There we go. Stop whitewashing myself. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, this is Hellwinter's Fleet. I like it because it's nice and simple. Cutter Rambler, Vulture, Ironclad. Is this the fleet in its final form, Hell? I noticed that you're also hell diving, so I'm hoping that we're discussing Hellwinter's fleet whilst he's running around frantically dropping stratagems on himself and getting the Terminid knocked out of him. Um, you know, so yeah, it's probably a really good time to take the mick out of Hellwinter because he can't do anything about it because he's too busy fighting for democracy and drinking liberty. But yeah, a nice little fleet, right? Cutter Rambler is your daily runaround. Vulture to go and make yourself some money, and the Ironclad when you've got enough money to go and do some really big cargo runs. Yeah, like it. Good fleet. Let's have a look at the next one, which is Edison. I think this is yours, isn't it? Oh God, I don't know why you've got bits highlighted in red. Also, do you have to make it like that? Because I can't see what half of this is. Uh, yeah. So, Edison, obviously, if you want to rob someone, Edison's a really good candidate because look at all those ships, you monster. Oh, I've just realised I might have missed the Taurus off of my fleet chart. Did I have the Taurus on there? I don't think I did. I've got the Taurus, by the way, as well. Oops, sorry. Um, Fleet final for now, says Hellwinter. Nice. Yeah, so we've got the Javelin, we've got the Idris, Kraken, two Polaris, two Perseus, because you need those. Um, no Endeavour? You surprise me. There's a Hammerhead, Connie Andromeda, Retaliator, Vanguard Harbinger, a 600i Executive Edition. Guess why he got that? Bunny Merchantman, Odyssey, Hull C, Starfire, Gemini, Genesis Starliner, Retaliator, and then a whole bunch of smaller ships. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the interesting thing here is kind of this entire side of it. If you cut it in half with the Perseus, the Hammerheads, the Banu Maximin on one side, and the Javelin, the Polaris, and everything on the other side, maybe with the exception of the Kraken, although I'm not buying it. One side is the stuff that you play normally, and then the other side is almost exclusively org use or whatever. But yeah, um, craziness, right? Um, yeah, that's kind of crazy. Um, so yeah, so the spare Polaris, the spare Perseus, ready to be melted or turned into something interesting Edison's saying. I think you're very much waiting on the Anvil capital, aren't you, mate, and all that sort of stuff. Do you think the Vulture is too tall to fit in the Ironclad? As this is just what I would do with it. I'm guessing probably not. Just from some of the images that we've seen, I think it'll fit. I'm hoping so. But yeah. The Starliner is the odd one out in that fleet, says socially. Oh, I get it. The red ones are the one that's going to be melted or CCU. Sorry, Edison, I'm with you. But yeah, absolutely. Obviously, geared towards military, because even the non-military ships have a very military tilt to them, like the Banu Merchantman and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, the 600i is not something you've chosen for yourself, but it is exceptionally rare. So yeah, not a bad fleet at all. Again, very combat focused, nice looking fleet, with a lot of offerings for an org there. And I know you're already in one, so don't try and snap him up. So yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah, the stuff surrounding him red is to melt and CCU. Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, quite nice. Let's see what else we have in the Discord. Who else's fleets do we have? I know I've got Shadow Girl's permission to share her fleet, so that'll be the next one that we share. Where are we? Here we go. Open link. Cool. Okay, so let's see if we can zoom out slightly. There we go. Cool. So yeah, C8R Pisces. We got the Sulen, Endeavour, Apollo Medevac, Scorpius, Hornet. We've got the 400i with its X1. We've got the G12 for the 600i, and so on and so on. Yeah, not a bad little selection as far as ships go. Again, what I like about this is there are a lot of ships. The E1, everything on the left-hand side, able to be flying soloable, as well as the Hornet and the Scorpius, and the Sulen. And then the size differential doesn't go up till you get to that absolute monstrosity at the bottom, the Polaris. Everything else runs itself pretty much with a small crew or solo. And if you're not sold on orgs yet, then that's a very, very sensible way to go. Here's a really interesting thought. Just while I sit here and look at the fleet and invite Shadow to to invite Shadow Girl to any thoughts on her fleet and any kind of overriding principles. I completely lost my train of thought. That didn't help, did it? See, this is why you don't drink and stream. Cheers, YouTube. Endeavour, thanks, Wiggy. Knew I could count on you, buddy. So, does anyone who owns an Endeavour have modules for their Endeavour yet? And if so, are you comfortable to share with us which ones? Because I'd be interested to know, because there's some interesting looking modules for the Endeavour. So let us know. I compare the Vulture to the size of the tanks in the Ironclad assault image using Starship 42, and it looks like the doors would not close. The top ones. Interesting. Very possibly, although what we have to bear in mind with a lot of those ships at the moment is that they are very much concepts. All those images, all those sizes, sizes may well change because they're not even in white box yet, let alone grey box. So, or the other way around. Pilgrim says they have the modules in buyback. Mad Teapot. No, so far off I think I can wait for the modules. Absolutely. Judomo says I've got them in buyback. The Biodomes, the medical and the hangar. Socially Confused says no modules yet, but we'll pick up the hospital hangar and the farming modules. Biodome and the hangar for the Endeavour. Says 8. Interesting. Yeah, I find it interesting because I don't see a lot of people talking about the Hadron Collider, the science module, which is interesting. Shadow Girl says on a fleet, which is on screen at the moment, she says, my fleet is sort of semi-exploration and semi-military, with the endeavour for science later. And while I do medical stuff, I also plan to moonlight as a thief doing heists against the NPCs. Nice. And that fleet kind of fits that, right? Although, if you're going to pull off theft, you want more Drake in there, surely. Let's have a quick vote. Who thinks Shadow Girl needs more Drake in her fleet? I'm in so much trouble. AV says, personally, I'm waiting to see the new design and how the modules will work out before getting some of them out of buybacks. Endeavour modules, Dell has, says, science, biodome, research, fuel, crew, medical, and landing. Colour me surprised, Dell. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. The completionist. My question is that all of them? And if not, why not? Why didn't you buy the other ones? What have you got against the other ones, Dell? Go buy the other ones. Go buy the other ones now. But yeah. Now fly what you want, says Shadow. It says Wiggy at Shadow Girl. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone means more Drake, more Origin, says Ape. There is a lot of Origin in that lineup. But it's again, it's nice. It's I quite like the layout. So quick question for you then, Shadow Girl. You've got two Pisces in there, the C8X and the C8R. Is that intentional, or is one going to become something else? And if there is intentional, what's the thinking between having the two? More Drake. Surely I'm watching a refined gentleman. I am, but it's not a gentleman whose fleet's on the screen. This is the major, otherwise known as Shadow Girl, in chat. This is her fleet. So yeah, she has pictures. Yes, she's just in here, just below the 600 eyes nose. You'll see something called the major and a dot, and that's her. But yeah, more Drake. I get that. I get that. I must admit, from Drake, the ship I like most is actually the Caterpillar. And I think part of that, and I know Edison's going to get angry at me for saying this, is I like the idea of having a ship that is modular. So if it keeps its modularity, I am very much interested in the criminal modules like the drugs lab, the chop shop, organ harvesting, interrogation, whatever, right? All those sorts of things that it could be doing, like a hacking center. I really, really like those ideas. I think that'd be really cool. I also like the fact that the caterpillar is asymmetric and you fly on the side of it. I find that quite challenging, but if you pull it off and you land it well, and you fly it well, it is incredibly satisfying. So I like that too. But yeah, it is intentional having both the C8R and the C8X, says Shadow Girl. I really like the rescue, but it's less important to me. I like the C8X because it'll be perfect as a personnel shuttle for the Polaris. That it will. It'll be very good for that. And just, a couple of SCU boxes when you need to for mission critical kit, or, recovering that heist or whatever. Yeah, that's a really nice choice. Agreed on the Caterpillar. I need to grab another CCU after the CCU shenanigans. This ILW, says Wiggy. Yeah, 100%. And make sure you do. Absolutely. But yeah, that's just another view of Scarlet's fleet, or Shadow Girl's fleet. Yeah. I want a bounty hunting, aka kidnapping module for my cat. Yeah, almost like an auction module, like a people trafficking module, yeah, that sort of stuff. I know that's getting dangerously political, but yeah, I still think that'd be a really cool idea. RSI needs a C8 equivalent. To be honest, I think the C8 is so good as it is. They'll struggle to pull off something that's as good as that without it just being the same thing in a different skin. Socially confused says the cat sounds like a supervillain ship of fun. I agree 100%. Loners for the Endeavour are the Cutlass Red and Starfarer. Yes, they are. Yeah, and a couple of good loners at that. Um, yeah. Dangerous waters being sailed at the moment, says Rash. Rash, you know me. I like to walk that line. For bounty hunting, I have my Hannah ENI M34 restraint system and the Faction 9 baton. I don't know if you should be announcing that publicly. Um, although, having been absolutely madly playing Cyberpunk, I'm getting close to the end of it now, having spent about 130 hours in the game. Getting close to the end of Cyberpunk, there are some very interesting um, weapons in Cyberpunk, and if you know the one I'm talking about, you know exactly where I'm going. That would be my baton, 100%. A vibrating baton. YouTube, don't demonetize me. It's funny. But yeah, Chris says the C8 is functionally a great ship, but blows up too easily in master modes. I went to rescue someone with the C8R and got insta-gibbed by an NPC Cutlass Black's missile. Yeah, I think this is what they are, right? Shuttles are zero risk ships. Um, that sort of stuff. Fix my fleet badges. Oh god, no, I'm not getting into the fix my fleet stuff. Absolutely not. No, you can't make me. Socially, yes, it was. Um, but yeah, you know, the shuttles. I think what I think is going to end up happening. That they need to have money sinks like repairing in normal MMOs, right? Well, there's going to be the same thing in here. But I think the more that you go through the atmosphere, both directions, the more wear and tear will be on the larger ships. So shuttles will be really useful rather than going, well, we'll just land the Polaris. As well as the fuel, I think it will probably put a lot of wear and tear on the components. You'll take armor damage for it, whereas the shuttles are going to take a lot less comparatively, which means all of a sudden there's a point to them. All of a sudden, for a javelin, the MPUV personnel becomes invaluable, getting people down to the surface and vice versa. So um, yeah, exactly that. Badges is more of validating your fleet choices kind of guy. Yeah, and look, hey, we don't have to agree on your fleets, right? That's the beautiful thing about it is that your fleet is never wrong. If people say there are different ways to do it, and you decide that you want to have done it the way that you want to have done it, that's fine, right? And I've said this to people for ages. Sometimes you just want a ship, and there's nothing anyone can do about that. It's like I get it, I get all that. It's like this is nice, but I like this kind of meme, and that's exactly what it is. Um, a game is a deeply personal thing. There are going to be certain things you want for aesthetics, or because of the way it feels, or because of a completely ridiculous feature in it, right? It's the only reason I can come up for wanting an 890 jump. But yeah, that sort of stuff is you absolutely you want what you want, and it's a hobby, and people don't get to tell you how to do your hobbies, right? So whatever you want. If you want help, there are absolutely good ways to do things and not so good ways to do things. You can get ships on the cheap. There are some ships that are going to be straight out better than others at doing certain things, 100%. But generally, it's up to you. You can show mine says limited. I shall have a look, my friend. Do you have it in the? Is it in the? Limited. Can you share it? Oh God, Dell, what the? So this is Dell's fleet. Oh. What you can't see just above me, I think, is there's where I am. There's a Starfarer, a Retaliator, and a Genesis Starliner. I I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If you are struggling to choose between ships, owning them all is certainly one way to go about it. I'm not talking through individual choices here, Dell, because I'll be here till the middle of next week. You utter monster. Um, uh, all I'm going to say is, where's your javelin, dude? Where's your javelin? Oh dear. Don't want one. Don't swear at me. I'm trying to be nice. Um, but yeah, no, dude. I suppose the beautiful thing is if you're struggling to choose between two ships, just buy both as a perfectly legitimate option. It must be a pain in your backside to find the right ship you want in the ASOP terminal. That must be a mission and a half. Given the fact that a lot of these ships have multiple ships as loaners, that must just be miserable. Holy moly. But yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wait, did 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 I just read that right? Do you have a cutty steel? Get out. Just when you thought, you think you know someone, you think you get to know them, and then they pull something like that on you. It's a cutty steel. What are you doing with your life? When I said you can't be wrong, I didn't mean that ship. That ship is wrong. It makes you a wrong un. You should take yourself around the back and have a good word with yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're ever in a server with Dell and the server crashes, it's because Dell's gone to take a ship out. Um, but yeah, absolutely. I can ban him now. Yeah, absolutely. Here is near a steal. Sometimes it will kick you out before you get to the bottom. Is there a rock DS? Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Let's find out. Is there a rock DS in it, Dell? I don't even know where it sits. Where does it sit? I don't think there is. Nice. So yeah, I can only wonder what you're doing with three Steves, two mules. Oh god. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, 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 yeah. So that's that. Yeah. So what we'll do is one of the streams in the future. If you keep an eye on the Discord, I will put a message up for people to come and give us a shout if they want me to go through the fleet, and we'll have a look through some fleets on the stream. And what I'll ask you to do as well is put a little comment with it explaining what's going on. So I've got some stuff to talk about when I got on there. And then, like, I feel like Dell needs no explanation here whatsoever. I jealous. I want to pretend it's something else, Dell, but really I'm just jealous. Yeah, holy shit. Man, that's crazy. It's awesome and it's crazy. So yeah, nice stuff. Anyway, that's that one and yeah, I don't know what to say about that anymore. Um I need a counselor, says Dell. Yeah, therapy would be good. There needs to be an intervention here, I think, is basically where we're going with that. Just spend some time in not so nice places. Um, yeah, making sick money and nothing to spend it on, mate. Yeah, but I've got mad respect for you and what you've done. So yeah, you earned every penny of that fleet, and you spend it on whatever the hell you want, and you enjoy it. Yeah, that's crazy stuff. Yeah, and thanks for single-handedly getting RSI effectively through a year of project development. Cheers. Thanks. Um, right, I've got to save you, Dell, from all of the basically begging that is now going on in chat. It is time, unfortunately, ladies and gents, to call a halt. But we'll be hanging out in Discord. If you want to come and hang out for a little while, you'll be more than welcome. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.